So I only got told yesterday that I was going to speak, so I haven't prepared anything.
You're always ready. Don't say nothing prepared. You're always ready.
Yeah. So as Steve said, my name's Louize Clark and I'm born and bred in Luton. I am a business and life strategist, which I'll explain as I go on through my story what that actually means. So I'm qualified in law. I've got a first-class law degree. I've got a master's in international HR management. I am HND in criminology, criminal psychology, sales, marketing. I have a whole list of qualifications. I've worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. I headed up FIFA World Cup 2014 Rise as One campaign with Budweiser. I've worked for Heineken, Champions League, Europa League, FA Cup, World Cup, obviously, Formula One. So I've done some really, really good things. I've worked with some amazing people, but I've been really fortunate and really blessed. And now I've started my own business, which I'll go into. So why I've got so many qualifications is because it was a coping mechanism. It was my go-to because of my childhood. So going back to where it all started, I was born into a very abusive household. My dad was a narcissist and he used to beat my mum on a regular basis. So the abuse, the verbal abuse would be daily, and the physical abuse would be at least once a week. I've watched her go to hospital. She's had her eyes bleed. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that. That's how bad it was. The vessels in her eyes all burst and they bled. That then led me to be 9 years old and thinking, do you know what, I don't even want to be in this house anymore, I want to get out. So I started hanging around the shops, got involved in crime. First time I was involved in crime was 9 years old. I used to listen to a scanner for people in the local estate. I used to get paid to do it. It was quite good money, to be fair, back in the day. £5 to listen to a scanner and open garages for people stealing cars, but it's one of them things. That then led me to take drugs at 10. So I was smoking weed at 10 and 11. By the time I was 12 was my first court appearance, and I'd already been arrested twice, but I was in court for fighting at 12. Got expelled from school at that point, and then that led me to drug addiction, so taking speed and ecstasy from 13, 14, 15, taking heroin at 16 and crack at 16. When I look back, when I look at school, I was excluded 18 times. I was the worst in Bedfordshire. So I'd have been suspended 15 and expelled 3, which so total was 18 times. And I'd been arrested 6 times by the time I'd left school. So that kind of destruction led, because I was completely, to be honest, I was lost. I didn't know who I was, didn't know what I wanted. I knew I didn't like being at home. I knew I didn't like myself. And I took drugs because I wanted to escape. It was that escapism, it was that kind of euphoria. But inside of me was also an anger. I had such rage. I used to start fights left, right and centre because it was just my way of lashing out and taking what I was seeing at home, just getting rid of that because I didn't know how to vent it. At school, I was always told I was the problem child. I was the one that would never amount to anything. And, you know, when I look back at school, there was a lot of fights that I had. There was a lot of stuff that I caused. And maybe that was because I wanted attention. I didn't know what was going on. But there was not one teacher that said, do you know, what's going on at home? Not one person looked and thought, what's going on with her? Why is she acting so crazy? Instead, they just told me that I was in the head, wasn't right, and that I would never amount to anything. So that kind of road of destruction kind of continued. Obviously, addictions continued. I then moved into selling it, which probably isn't my highest moment, but I went down that path, saw some horrific things. People stabbed in the head, ears chopped off, you know, exposed to some horrific violence at a very, very young age. And then that ended up with me going to prison. So I got sentenced, I'd done 9 months, got sentenced to 18 months. And during that time, well, actually, sorry, backtrack. Before I went to prison, I had a daughter. So I got with somebody who was not a very nice person. So my conditioning was that a love and relationship, it was shown through abuse. It wasn't shown, it was shown through violence, through controlling behaviour, through social isolation, through gaslighting. And I thought that that was love. So when somebody showed me that, I was addicted to that because that's what I thought love was, that's what I thought relationships were, because that was all I'd seen. So I got with my daughter's dad. He attacked me with a hammer. So I had a hammer to the back. I had my jaw broken 4 times. Had my eye socket shattered. And then, obviously, I ended up going to prison. And when I was in prison, I sat there and I thought, I don't fit in here either. Like I did, everywhere I went, I didn't feel like I fitted in. So I sat there and I thought, well, I need to change this. It's me that needs to change this. The decisions that I had made had put me into this situation. So yes, I was exposed to stuff, but the choices that I made in that moment, that decision is what shaped my destiny. It's what shaped me to be here. I'm here for a reason. So when I realised that, I thought, right, well, what am I going to do? When I get out, how am I going to move on? And I came out and I had to completely reinvent myself and be somebody that I wanted to be. So who did I want to be? Well, I didn't want to be in trouble. I didn't want to be taking drugs. I didn't want to be going in and out of that cycle, because that was my cycle of life. My dad's been to prison, my brother's been to prison, my partner's been to prison, I've been to prison. I'm like, I need to break this cycle, so I need to do something about it. And that was where education came in, because at that point I thought, well, I'm going to go back to college. Okay, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to study. And it was a coping mechanism for me, because it was the way in which I defended myself, because no one could take my knowledge away. So you could beat me, you could slap me, you could call me all the names under the sun, but you could not take my knowledge. So I went back, I studied fashion, I studied sewing, studied pattern cutting for a while, did that, and I enjoyed that, but again, it wasn't me, because I just didn't know, I didn't fit in. This wasn't my type of people, I didn't really fit in here. Tried it, worked for a company for quite a few years like that, but it just wasn't me. And then I had other children, but during this time I had severe imposter syndrome, because although I've come out and I've gone into this new life, this new world, I'm trying to find myself. My go-to, if anyone pissed me off, would be violence, it would be rage, it would be aggression, it would be, you know, lashing out at people, reaching for drink, reaching for something. So I'm trying to navigate myself in this new world of what does that look like? Who am I meant to be? How am I meant to react? And I found it really difficult. So I was getting jobs because of my ambition, because you put me in front, if I wanted something, I would focus on it and I would get it. But then how to behave when I was in that role, I found really challenging. So then I would sit there and I'd feel like I was in imposter syndrome, I didn't deserve to be there. And then I'd self-sabotage. And then it would go up and down and up and down. So I decided, right, I'm going to go to college, back to college. I'm going to study something. What I'm going to do? I'll do marketing. That's what I do marketing. So I applied to go to university, and it was free clearing, because obviously I've got no qualifications, apart from like the BTEC and the City and Guilds, but that wasn't enough to get me into university. So I thought, right, I'll go through clearing, and I got a place, but I had to do an extended degree because I had to do my maths and English, because I had no GCSEs, I had absolutely nothing. So I remember I went in, I said, right, I'm going to do marketing, I'm going to signed up. One of the modules was law. I said, all right, I'll give this a go, because obviously I'm so used to breaking the law, bending the law, and stuff. I'll give it a go. Yeah, and one of my things when I was young growing up was sales of goods, because I used to steal things and I used to take them back to the shop and I used to state my rights to them, and I used to always get away with it. So I was really familiar with this bit of law, and I got an A+. So I was like, this is really good. And the dean came over to me and she's like, oh, yeah, have you ever considered law? And I'm sitting there thinking, am I having this conversation for real? Like, and I went, oh, no, I'm just going to do marketing. And they went, I really think you should consider law. So I thought, wow, okay, let me have a look. Can I do law? Because I'm an ex-offender. Can I actually do anything like that? And I did a bit of research, and yes, could do law. So I thought, do you know what, I'm going to do it. So I did it, and I came out with a first-class law degree. My second year, I actually won the scholarship for my final year, so they paid for my final year because my grades were so high. And that was it there. I remember before I went, I didn't tell them. I told one person when I was deciding whether I could do the qualification. Didn't tell anyone else that I had passed. And I sat there at the front of the class with my rucksack. I was an older lady, I was in my 30s then, so I was like sat there at the front of my class. And it wasn't until I went to collect my degree that day, I went and saw the teachers. And I said, before I collect this, I need to tell you something. And they were like, what? So when I told them, they nearly fell over. They were like, oh my God, you do not look like somebody like that, which I get a lot. You don't look like an ex-offender. What does one look like? So, you know, what does one look like? So, yeah, I kind of collected my degree and I was really pleased with it, obviously proud of myself, because in that time I was also raising 5 children, because I'd gone on to I had 3, and my husband at the time, he was widowed and he had 2 children that lived with me as well, so I had 5 children, and they ranged from, they were teenagers right the way down to a baby. So there was, yeah, so it was hard work, and I ran a marathon halfway through as well. Good, add that one in. But yeah, I got my degree, and it was a really proud moment for me because it was something that I never thought was possible. And at that time, I then got offered the contract with Budweiser. So I started in their supply chain and worked my way up into their in-house legal and their marketing team, which was huge because that was when I was working on FIFA World Cup, and they also owned Stella Artois, so I was working with them on their Wimbledon campaigns and their golf campaigns, which for somebody like, you know, for me, from where I come from, it was not, you know, I wasn't expected to get there, but I kind of got there through my own determination and grit, but I couldn't tell anyone. So doing that job, I was still sat there and I'm working with people that are, you know, they've gone through graduation programs, they're graduates, they're there because of who they know, not for what they got, you know, their qualification, but the people, their family. So I'm sitting there with all these people, I thought, I can't even relate. So I still did the job, but my marriage started to crumble, that broke down, and I got with somebody who was my biggest lesson as an adult, and he was probably by far the biggest narcissist I've ever met in my entire life. He destroyed me in a way, physically and mentally, broke me down bit by bit. And I lost that job because he turned up at my work and completely screamed the place down. And then I left there with him in the car, and he punched me 15 times in the head on the fast lane of the motorway, that I ended up having to go to hospital when we stopped. And that then kind of just was another roller coaster that I had to ride and navigate, because it broke me down, and I sat there and I didn't know what to do, where to go. And then I had to rebuild myself, but obviously I've done it before, I do it again, so I picked myself back up and I went to work for another company, and I sat on that board for 4 years I was online with the MD and the CEO, and that was with a commercial warewashing team, which was great. It allowed me to pick myself back up fully. So then I went off, got another job at Heineken, which was another great job, and I was working there. And then I got hit with another blow, which I spoke about last time when I was speaking, and that was, so I'd raised my children at this point. My eldest one was 20. And she got into a relationship with somebody that was, you know, probably not the type of person I would want her to be with, but she did, she got into a relationship with him. And then in 2019, I had another setback. The police knocked on my door, they'd arrested her, and they wanted to search my house. 19 officers came into my house, and they searched it. There ended up being 30 officers in the house, and they found a sawn-off shotgun in her pillow, in her headboard. And instantly, it's a prison sentence, it's a minimum mandatory sentence. She'd never been in any trouble whatsoever. Never so much as had a detention at school. She was a really good, and still is, a really, really good girl. We fought it, and she still went to prison. So she went to prison, she got a 2-year sentence. Managed to reduce it, but yeah, she still went. And at that point, I just thought, the cycle hasn't broken. The cycle's still continuing. I need to do something about it. I need to use what I've gone through, what she's gone through, to try and make a difference and make a change. So I left my job. I went to work for a company in Liverpool that was supporting ex-offenders, getting them into work, building programs for them to help people that have gone through abuse, and so work with children, care leavers, school leavers, people in school, and ex-offenders to give them employment opportunities. So I used all of my corporate knowledge and commercial knowledge to build contracts with construction companies, loads of companies throughout the UK, catering, etc., to help people get into work. And that runs successfully. I built programs that now run in prisons, entrepreneurial programs to help people. But I still wasn't doing enough. So I left there in 21 when my mum died. And I thought, right, I'm going to do something that I want to do now. So now I build programs for children or for young people, teenagers that are struggling with identity, don't know who they are, people that have gone through abuse, don't know what they want to do. So I built programs for schools, I built programs for prisons, women that have gone through abuse. And now I work internationally. So there's somebody called Tony Robbins that some of you might have heard of. Yeah, I work directly with Tony Robbins, so I'm working with him all of next week. I've gone on to study my neuro-linguistic programming, into emotional intelligence, neuroscience. I'm doing a qualification with Harvard University at the moment, because now I want to help people move on from where they are. People aren't trapped. You can do whatever you want to do. And my kind of aim now is to help people move on, because if I can do it, going from my background, and I can go and work for Tony Robbins in America, if I can, work and do FIFA World Cup, then anybody can do it. It's not, it's not without, it's in everyone's kind of capabilities. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. Anything else, Steve? Does anyone want to see how powerful your mind is?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the people who can stand up, stand up. I want you to do a little exercise. So I want you to put your arm out like that, and I want you to spin it round and see how far it goes. Okay, look at it. You've got to look at it and look at your arm where it is. Okay? Now I want you to bring it back. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to do that thing, but not do it, not actually do it. Just visualise your arm going round. And I want it to go round a quarter of the way more than what it did. So just visualise your arm going out, really see it where it was, and then bring it back, and then do it again. No, then visualise again. I want you to do it again. I want you to go another 25% all the way around. So just visually do it. Don't actually do it. I just want you to imagine your eye. Just look at your arm. Look at it going further back, and then back again. And then I want you to visualise it again, third time. I want you to go 100% more. I want you to go around as far as you can go. Visualise it, really see it. See your arm, see how far it's gone. Right, now I want you to actually do it. And I want you to see how far your arm goes this time. Yeah, with your eyes open, watch how far it goes around. Does it go around further? Yeah? So that is how powerful your mind is. So if you believe something and you see something, you can make it happen. So if you see yourself wanting, so for me, I saw myself wanting to succeed and go to get first in law, and I did. I see myself. I wanted to visualise myself working for Tony Robbins. I imagined it, and it's happened. So if you put your mind to something, if you see it, your mind can do it, because your mind does not know the difference between what's reality and what's not reality. So it's what you tell it. So if you tell yourself you can do it, you can do it. Any questions? Go on.
It's not really a question. I've known Louise since she was 15 years old. So some of these things she's really downplayed. Some of them she hasn't downplayed enough. So me and Louise, since we've known each other, probably fallen out with each other on a big time scale about 4 or 5 times. Yeah. But always seem to kind of gravitate back towards each other. This is the best version of Louise I've ever seen in my life. When Louise graduated, I don't actually think we were speaking to each other at the time, but I had to call up and just say, oh my God, you're like the most, don't respect anybody in the world as much as I respect this woman. She's been through so much. She's like the bravest, most fucking courageous person I've ever met, honestly. And we're not going to fall out again. We're way too grown up for that now, but I just wish I was there to support you more through the hard bits. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, V.
What would you say to people who write ex-offenders off?
Then you're a mug. So the thing with, no one knows what can happen. You could go out today, you could have, driving with it over 30 miles an hour you're breaking the law. Yeah. Not wearing a seatbelt, strict liability offence, you can get done for that. So nobody knows what could happen. So never write somebody off. And we all make mistakes. We all do silly things that we regret. Doesn't mean that we have to stay that way forever.
That's it, brilliant. Thank you. Sweet. Drop that on the floor. Thank you so much.
Actually, this was what Jean had gave this card earlier on. Well, no, we got this, didn't we, from Shelley. And Jean, I was the lady that I met in the beginning with the first minute.
Yes.
And she said about it, so it said never give up. And you told me, Jean, didn't you, about the Winston Churchill speech? Yeah. And what did he say?
Well, he was invited to a dinner function, and he was a guest speaker. And when the time came, he just stood up and he said, never, 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 never give up.
How perfect is that?